Today we will be discussing about the forest man of India, Jadav Payeng. The objectives for today's study will be to understand the life of Jadav Payeng, and then we will understand the impact of reforestation works on ecology. Now let's talk about the man who single-handedly converted a washed out land into a 1360 acres of forest. This is an interesting story from the state of Assam. Many ancient scriptures, folklores, and stories depict how the lifestyle of people in Assam is tangled with the deposition of the mighty river Brahmaputra, which flows through this state. Brahmaputra is also called the sorrow of Assam, as the river causes severe damage to villages and townships due to its flooding year after year. Every monsoon, Brahmaputra submerges the islands and gives birth to the new ones. Flood destroys houses, uproots people, and makes them homeless. It takes away their agricultural land, erodes the fertile land, and creates miles and miles of barren sandbars. This sounds catastrophic, but it is a regular occurrence there. Now let us come to the story of Jadav Molai Payeng, who was born to a poor buffalo farmer of the Mishing tribe in Assam. In 1965, due to flooding of the river Brahmaputra in his native land, the river island Arunachapuri was submerged. His family had no other option but to take refuge in Majuli. Majuli, the world's biggest river island, is surrounded by the river Brahmaputra. Majuli also has to bear the fury of the river, and it is said that over the centuries the strip connecting Majuli to the mainland has disappeared. The green vegetation of Majuli was severely washed away slowly and steadily by repeated flooding, and therefore it was only left with sandbars, a barren landscape without any trees or greens, filled only with sand. Jadav Payeng, after finishing his 10th standard in Jorhat, Assam, returned to his native land. At an impressionable age of 16, Payeng witnessed a tragic scene that transformed him to the person he is today. One day while he was walking through the wasteland, he saw a huge number of snakes has washed up into the barren treeless sandbar. Due to the scorching heat, with the sun beating down them, they lay there in an entwined, lifeless mass, dead due to the exposure of sun. This incident left a deep impression on his mind. Now coming to the development of Molai Forest, a one man-made forest. The same year in 1979, the Social Forestry Division of the Golaghat district started a 5-year tree plantation drive on 200 hectares of this Arunachapuri sandbar. Jadav Payeng joined this project as a project laborer. 5 years after the completion of the project, everyone involved in the project left, but Payeng chose to stay back to the native Arunachapuri, and the scene of these dead snakes kept playing on his mind. He walked through the wasteland and planted around 20 bamboo seedlings there, and then he started planting more and more trees on his own. He was determined to change this sandbar into a green, dense forest, so he simply continued planting trees. He also tended and took care of the plants that were left behind. His dedication and perseverance bore results, as over the years there were several thousand of trees growing on the sandbar. The flourishing forest brought in a variety of birds, rabbits, deer, and other animals. The dense forest was home to monkeys, tigers, rhinoceros, and elephants as well. The sandbar, after years of help from this man, actually turned into an ecological paradise. After working relentlessly since 1979 till date, this man made his dream come true. He single-handedly turned this barren sandbar into a lush, dense forest with flourishing wildlife. The authorities came to know about this forest on Majuli in the Majuli Island in Kokilamukh, Jorhat district of Assam in 2008. The forest area of 550 hectares was the effort of this single person who turned this wasteland into a forest reserve. This forest was also known as the Molai forest. It was named after the man who created this forest, Padma Shri Jadav Molai Payeng. The name of the forest was given by the government of Assam, and in Assamese it's called Molai Katoni, where Katoni means forest. The forest is now home to Bengal tigers, Indian rhinoceros, and over 100 deers and rabbits, besides apes and several other varieties of birds, including large number of vultures. There are several thousands of trees. Bamboo covers an area of 300 hectares. A herd of around 100 elephants regularly visits the forest every year and generally stays around for 6 months. They have given birth to around 10 calves in the forest in recent years. The education system should be like this. Every kid should be asked to plant 2 trees, is what Payeng says. Now coming to his early life and personal life. Jadav Payeng belongs to this Mishing tribe in Assam in India. He, along with his wife and 3 children, 1 daughter and 2 sons, used to live in a house which he built in the island in the forest. In 2012, Jadav built a house at number 1 Mishingaon near Kokilamukh Ghat and shifted to this house with his family. Since then, they have been living in this house. Jadav, however, travels every day to his forest to tend and look after the plants and the trees. He has cattle and buffaloes on his farm, sells the milk for his own livelihood, and that is the only source of his income. In an interview from 2012, he revealed that he has lost around hundreds of his cows and buffaloes to the tigers in the forest. However, he doesn't blame the forest, rather, he blames the people who carry out large scale encroachment and destruction of forest as the root cause and plight of these wild animals. Now, when we speak about Jadav and his personal life, he says that the size of my cattle increased in parity with the size of my family, with 2 sons and a daughter, and the forest. Therefore, we can say that Jadav considers the forest as a part of his own family. He says, I own about 50 cows and buffaloes that live and graze in and around the forest. I never adulterated my produce of milk. My entire family, including my wife Vinita, my sons Sanjay and Sanjeev, and my daughter Munmuni, starts our day at 3:30 in the morning. We milk and bathe the livestock. The milk is delivered to the men who row across to Jorhat. After a brief break and meal, I lift my bag of seedlings and start walking briskly through the forest on the banks of Brahmaputra River to row across the Molai Island, the newest reforestation mission that I have started from July 2012. The children go to school. For their convenience of schooling, I shifted my family to the southern banks of Kokilamukh. In a canoe, I cross the river to the forest to attain my duty. With Mekahi, I am going to green the northern bank of Majuli as well. Now coming to the resistance faced and how Jadav overpowered the resistance to develop this green forest. As per the sources, Payeng had to go through a lot of resistance before he could actually grow this heavenly abode on earth. From 2007, a herd of elephant, 100 in numbers, started visiting the forest area for food. Sometimes they used to cross over to Kokilamukh, and the northern Jorhat started creating havoc. This irritated the villagers who held Molai responsible for inviting the trouble and was almost about to set the forest on fire. Some torched it, some axed it. Payeng resisted it strongly, saying, "Why train your anger on elephant over the trees? We owe our civilization to the forest." Although there was a wanton destruction of the forest which pained and fumed Jadav to a considerable extent, yet unnerved, the man stand in front of the bravely in front of the mob, hitting their conscience. It clicked, the carnage finally died down. Another important incident that happened was during 2010 when learning strange rhinos from Kaziranga taking shelter, some poachers entered the forest. By the time Payeng was famous and was known to many in the country and was honored by many. Whenever he went out to receive the honors, miscreants sneaked into the forest to gun down the rhinos and harvest the valuable trees. They were almost succeeded in misleading the people of the region and slamming Payeng as a smuggler of wood. However, Jadav kept faith on his value and finally the truth prevailed. Now, before we move further, it's time for a small quiz. Jadav Payeng is known as option A, the forest man of India, option B, the river man of India, option C, the tree man of India, and option D, the mountain man of India. And the correct answer is option A, forest man of India. Now coming to The Light by Jitu Kalita. For over 3 decades, only few people in the Majuli region knew about Payeng and his forest. However, in 2009, Jitu Kalita, a nature photographer and journalist who writes in a popular column in a magazine on nature known as Prantik in Assamese, was stalking vultures when he found himself on the far side of the Chapori region. As Kalita recollects, I reached the forest by boat and started walking along the forest periphery, trying to comprehend what I visualize. When I caught Jadav's attention, taking me for a poacher, virtually he pounced on me, pushed me out of the forest. Taking no exceptions, undeterred, I published an article about the forest in a local newspaper. News of Payeng's work started spreading all across the world. Many awards and accolades started following. I was awestruck the first time I stepped into the forest, which was the densest in area. Intrigued, I followed the cowherd out only to have the prize of the biggest story in my life. I wrote a great deal about this forest and details in the media, resulting in Jadav being recognized. Payeng was even called to Paris for an afforestation drive. When Kalita visited him that afternoon in the spring of 2010 to break the news that the Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University invited him to the university, Jadav was yet to come home. Learning about the invitation, his wife Vinita's face appeared blotted with blood, and she murmured to herself, "How can he leave the forest exposing the estranged flood victim animals vulnerable?" When Kalita was about to send news reports to the press for the first time, this unassuming man was greatly disturbed. His eyes welled up and streams started flowing down his cheeks. In a soaked voice, he pleaded Kalita, saying, "I don't want publicity. What if it leads to the confiscation of my land by the government?" Kalita had to give him confidence that Indian constitution forbids none from greening the country. Greening is no more a mission for Jadav and his family. Rather, it's a way of his life. At the same time, he values the need for education, and he is doing his utmost best to educate his children in the best possible way and giving them affordable education. Jadav Payeng was honored at a public function arranged by the School of Environmental Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University on 22nd April 2012 for his achievements. He shared his experience of creating a forest in an interactive session where the famous Magsaysay Award winner Rajendra Singh, the JNU Vice Chancellor Sudhir Kumar Sopori were also present. Sopori named Jadav Payeng as the Forest Man of India. In the month of October 2013, he was honored by the Indian Institute of Forest Management during their annual event Coalescence. In 2015, he was honored with Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian award in India. He received honorary doctorate degree from the Assam Agricultural University and Kaziranga University for his contribution to environment. In 2012, a film documentary named Molai Forest was produced by Jitu Kalita, which was released and was a hit worldwide. In 2013, Aarti Srivastav directed a documentary Foresting Lives based on Jadav's life. Forest Man, an award-winning film documentary by William Douglas McMaster, was released in the year 2013. He featured in children's book Jadav and the Tree Plays, written and illustrated by Vinayak Verma. In 2018, the Department of Botany, B.N. Bandodkar College of Science, conducted an international conference on Green Earth, a panoramic view, where Padma Shri Jadav Molai Payeng was the chief guest. He recounted his experience in making this Molai forest coming true. Payeng has been always a simple man with a simple logic: love nature and nature will reciprocate. The standing ovation he received was the proof that he is an inspiration for one and all. He represents courage, dedication, and passion. He has always been the living example of how it is possible for a single individual to bring about a positive change in the environment. Now let's talk about the impact of reforestation works on ecology. Now, by definition, afforestation is the conversion of abundant and degraded agricultural land into forest, while reforestation is the replantation of trees in deforested land masses. Both of these practices contributes to the negative carbon emission, since growth of additional plants sequesters atmospheric CO2 and naturally sinks it in their biomass. Tree planting is an effective form of carbon offsetting. That is why it is so important to replenish and protect the forest lands. Now, forests can lose tree in a number of ways. It can be due to some kind of natural disturbances like wildfires, or it can be some kind of human activity like logging for timber, clearing land for agricultural reasons, and urbanizations. Whether deforestation has occurred due to human activity or natural activities, it is important to restore the climatic conditions. Forest plays a key role in Earth's natural carbon cycle, acting as one of the ecosystem absorber for carbon from the atmosphere. These carbon absorbing ecosystems are known as carbon sinks and includes forests, oceans, and soils. Each year, forest alone absorbs 1/3 of carbon dioxide emitted from burning fossil fuels. As more deforestation occurs, less carbon dioxide is absorbed from the atmosphere. What is more is that the land sector is responsible for 25% of global greenhouse gas emission that contributes to climate change. The activity of forest degradation is responsible for half of these emissions. The very process of deforestation itself causes a substantial amount of carbon emission, while simultaneously destroying one of the Earth's ability for natural regeneration. Deforestation thus forms a serious threat in the climate crisis conditions. Now, before we move further, it's time for a small quiz. The definition of reforestation is: option A, the destruction of trees in forest land; option B, the replantation of trees in agricultural land; option C, the replantation of trees in urban land; and option D, the replantation of trees in deforested land. And yes, the correct answer is option D, the replantation of trees in deforested land. Now, coming to various structural changes following reforestation. The first and the most obvious is development of a forest structure. The development of structural complexity after reforestation depends on which tree species are mostly planted and the age of planting. Wood plantation, including agroforestry, have less structural complexity than mature remnants of forest or than naturally regenerating forest of equivalent age due to more uniform spatial and temporal arrangements and establishments of plantations. When left to mature, wood plantations develop similar canopy cover, litter masses, and strata to the remnant of the forest. Planting a mixture of trees and shrub species provides a higher structural complexity than plantation of production of tree species and can lead to diverse size structure associated with a mature forest in a faster manner. Coming to the second point, which is diversity of understory plants. The development of a native plant understory within tree planting is dependent on dispersal from local sources because native seed banks are usually impoverished on agricultural lands. Understory species richness of planting decreases distance from nearest remnant forest. The abundance of seed in planting decreases from wind dispersal, bird dispersed to heavier seeds. Many understory species needs to be planted because the nearest source forest is often too distant or often too disregarded or degraded to provide any form of seeds. Now coming to the next point, diversity of terrestrial animal. Tree plantings must provide appropriate physical and biotic requirements for foraging, sheltering and nesting for animals to colonize. Animals often require different habit or habitat resources for these kind of activities, and the needs of the animals can differ seasonally through their life cycles. So planting a representative range of native plant species and densities should increase the richness of native animals in colonizing the tree plantation. Habitat value of restoration is determined therefore partially by this landscape positioning. Diversity of freshwater animal. Given the expected changes in microclimate and increased resource input, stream banks is likely to change assemblage of fresh water for animals substantially. Recent reforested streams can have similar richness of microinvertebrates to agricultural streams and can have distinct microinvertebrate composition and lower gamma diversity compared to the forested streams. Now the next point is the physical and biological structures of the soil. Reforestation is likely to improve soil structure because forest soils have higher aggregated stability due to larger litter inputs and reduced soil disturbances, lower bulk density because it is less compacted, and have higher porosity than agricultural soil. Now let's come to the next point, increasing the regional gamma diversity of agricultural region. Reforestation is constrained by the present land use, making the area configuration and habitat quality of forest patches critical to species use of and movement through the region. Gamma diversity of forest-dependent animals decreases rapidly below a forest cover of 10 to 30% within an area. A pragmatic approach is to concentrate reforestation in areas within existing moderate forest cover, which is above 30%, and potential higher remnant diversity. Now, in conclusion, we can say that the story of Jadav Molai Payeng, we can learn that all we need to do to make Earth a better place is to take some kind of small steps. We can do activities for generations like reforestation and planting trees that can help in preparing the environment and sustaining the environment for much stable use. Forest conservation not only is a single man's responsibility, but it is our collaborated responsibility. So therefore, let's plant more trees to survive and sustain the ecological balance. Thank you.